Grab your cup. This is an important conversation to have if you feel like you have old wounds in your life and you've experienced some really hard things. And it's a conversation about the relationship between spirituality and trauma, because it's a beautiful thing when you heal from your past relationships, how your spirituality deepens. So first I want to define both of those in the way that I'm seeing them and the way that I'm using them in this conversation, okay? See how this fits for you. But the word trauma is really the Greek word for wound. And so what that means is it's a wound. It's a wound like any other wound. If you get a cut on your arm, there's a wound there, and that wound needs to heal. While it's healing, it's sore, it's vulnerable, it hurts. You may be going around in the world and it's under your shirt, so people don't know there's a wound there, but you're protecting it. You make sure no one bumps up against it. If somebody does actually touch it accidentally, you have a response, and they're like, what was that all about? Those are our responses in our relationships, and when we're having a conflict with someone, the way that we respond to the demands in our life can come from those unhealed wounds that we're carrying around underneath the shirt. And the qualities of a wound and a scar that forms after the wound, when a scar forms, it's different tissue than the original tissue, right? It's less flexible, it doesn't give as much, it doesn't grow in the same way. So that's how I'm defining a trauma and a wound. How it shows up in your life is something happens and there's a change in how you see yourself. There's a change in the way that you relate to yourself, the way that you relate to other people in the world. And the change is from your original state of being. Your original state of being when you're born into this world is everything is good, I matter, I'm important, I'm worthy to be here, I am fully expressing love and receiving love. Like every baby that's born, until something happens to them to create a different interpretation of the world. That's really what it is. It changes the interpretation, and that creates the wound, that creates the scar. Spirituality I want to define as a connection to yourself. Spirituality is not religion. Religion is really the set of rules and rituals that people make up and say, this is what you're supposed to follow in order to be closer to God. You and I could make up a religion today, and we could give it a name, and we could come up with a set of rules and rituals and call it a religion and say, this is what we do to follow God. Spirituality is a connection to your inner self, the knowing of who you are, because you came from God. Knowing who you are, not needing other people, other rules, a different authority outside of yourself. The only authority outside of yourself is God, and that connection that you have within you and to your source. That to me is spirituality. Some people might find deeper spirituality in the practicing of their religion. Some people practice religion religiously and are not spiritual at all. We can deepen our spirituality through nature, through meditation and prayer, through music, and through healing those past wounds. And that's the connection that I really wanted to point out. Healing your past wounds so that you get a deeper knowing of yourself. When we stay wounded, when we have something happen, and let's call it trauma, and then there's a wound, typically what happens is we abandon ourselves in order to cope. Remember, like that walking around with an injury under your shirt and you're kind of coping. You're not really lifting your arm. You're making sure you don't get bumped on that side. All of the things. We do the same thing with our emotional wounds and the wounds that come from our experiences and the wounding to our spirit. It's when we disconnect from ourselves, we disconnect from our spirit. Because as we're coping, we're trying to figure out, how do I not get wounded again? How do I protect myself? So I might abandon what I really need and want and do what you need and want so that you like me better. I might work really hard and say yes to everything so that I seem important enough to keep around. I might, what else might people do? I might keep going for awards and acknowledgments out in the world because I don't know how to acknowledge myself. Those are all examples, and there's more, but examples of how people abandon self in order to cope with the wounds that they've had. Does that make sense? Do you do any of that? I know I have, because that's what people do. It's not like there's something wrong with you. It's not like you're broken. It's a response, a coping response to a wound that's not been healed and to a scar that is not flexible like the rest of your body, and to a place in your life where you haven't grown and developed in the way that you would have if that experience never happened. But the opportunity when you take on healing those past wounds is a deeper spirituality. It's an opportunity to deepen your connection to yourself and to find who you truly are when you're no longer coping, when you're no longer putting your masks on for the world out in general and for the people in your life. When you can take that mask off, that's a deeper spirituality, and that's a really beautiful thing. It's an opportunity when you decide to heal your trauma and to heal your wounds and to complete your past. It's an opportunity to know yourself deeper. Do they always go hand in hand? No. Sometimes people will go work on spiritual practices. They'll meditate, they'll go out in nature, but they have not taken the time or the courage to look at the wounding and to look at what's there. And if they don't do that, there's some spirituality, but they're still abandoning themselves. They're still not fully embracing everything that there is so that they can be healed. Some people will work on the trauma and the healing by changing how they think and recognizing their patterns, but not get more connected to themselves, not do the deeper spiritual work. In the work that I do and in the work that my clients have learned to take on to whatever degree they do, some of them do it amazingly, some of them do it timidly, whatever level that is, they are always on the journey of healing whatever there is to heal and deepening their spirituality. Because for me, in my mind and in my training, they go hand in hand. That's why in my website and whenever I am speaking somewhere, I say I'm a transformational health coach and a spiritual coach, because we do both together. So I wanted to make that connection for you, actually define trauma, what that means, what a wound is when we're talking about how it shows up in your life. I didn't even mention how it manifests in your body, but it does. That wounding will show up in any health issues that you cannot get over, that won't go away. There's a background wounding there. But I wanted to define that for you and also define spirituality versus religion, and then make that connection, because being willing to go deeper spiritually is a beautiful opportunity and not for the faint of heart. That's what I want to say. It takes something, but that's where the essence of life is. What do you think about that? Drop me a comment. I would love to know. Have a good day.